These are the men and women of Beaver Valley, the bravest of the brave. They fought fearlessly for their country, their city, their community, and for the ideals we share as Americans. They served proudly in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Here now are their stories, their own experiences in their own words, the words of the heroes of Beaver Valley. In 1949, Aliquippa native Charles Gilbert was 19 years old. He couldn't get a job at J&L Steel, so he decided to join the United States Army.
Well, I couldn't get no job in the mill, so me and one of my buddies, we volunteered to go into service together. But I always liked the Army. I didn't want no part of the Navy.
After basic training, Gilbert volunteered to go overseas. He would soon find himself serving in the Korean War with the 76th Antiaircraft Artillery as a squad leader.
It was rough because we were supposed to support the 25th Infantry. So I had to take care of the track and make sure the ammunition and stuff was there. Everything was in order, and make sure the guns stayed, clean.
Gilbert and his crew, traveling in a half-track, were severely injured during their time in Korea.
Well, we was going up to support the 25th. We was going up an incline, and the next thing I know, we was in space, and the half-track went over a cliff. The next thing, I woke up in the hospital, and they had put a body cast on me. I stayed in the hospital for about 4 or 5 months. When we went over the cliff, one of my gunner, he got killed, and the other, one of the cannoneers, he got his leg cut off, and I never did see or hear from none of them. When I was supposed to get discharged, that's when Truman added a year to our time, and we had to go back.
Once healed, Gilbert was back to supporting the 25th Infantry and experiencing the brutal conditions of war.
It was cool. That's why they called it frozen chosen. I was there when the Chinese got the 180 parallel, where you couldn't cross it. They can shoot over there. You couldn't shoot back over there to them. And that actually some of the soldiers froze. There's some things you don't talk about. I had 5 battle stars. I don't like to talk about it.
President Harry Truman had signed an order to desegregate the armed forces in 1948. 2 years later, when Gilbert started fighting in the Korean War, the process of desegregation was still occurring.
When I first went in, like just say I'm Company A, and across the yard was Company B. The white was over there, and the black was on the other side. And that's when, just before they start to desegregate it.
When Gilbert was discharged from the service in 1952, he came back to a segregated United States and a segregated job at the mill.
You come back and then you still segregated. Although it wasn't as bad as, some of the ones down in the South, but they let you know what was going on. One thing about it, when I went in there, in J&L, this was 1955. The first thing I noticed when I went in there in 55, that they had separate wash houses. And, in the job classification, it was segregated. Like, you bid on a job, you couldn't get, you couldn't get it. In other words, you're supposed to be fighting for freedom, and a lot of them lost their life over there for what? And then you come back to the States, go in the mill, and then you see that. Just say, how would you feel?
Overall, Gilbert said he was glad to have served, despite seeing the awful things that he still remembers today.
For one thing, I found out at 19, you see so much, I don't think your mind can cope with it, Your friends, you losing your buddies and stuff like that. Because the 25th Infantry, I had some friends in there. Lots of them was left over there. You never forget. It's been 65 years, and I still have flashbacks at times.